Will do. Okay, so I'm going to call the Finance Committee meeting of Thursday, December 15, 2022 to order 3 p.m. and thank everybody for being here. And I think we have one member present who's going to be hopefully joining us very soon. This is the meeting that is being held virtually. It's pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021 is extended. This meeting will be conducted via remote meeting. Members of the public who wish to access the meeting may do so via Zoom or by telephone. No in-person attendance of members of the public is permitted, but every effort is being made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. And I need to advise everybody that this is being recorded. So it's a recorded meeting. And with that, I'm going to go through the committee members present just to make sure that they can hear me and we can hear them. And again, alphabetically, Lynn.
Present.
And by last name, obviously. Matt. I would say Bob is next. Bob?
I'm here.
Matt?
Also here, thank you.
Bernie?
Present.
Michelle?
Present.
And Kathy?
Yes, here.
Okay, so we'll keep an eye out for Alicia, and I do not see her in the attendees group. So she's if she comes in there, I will let you know. Lynn, since you're maybe need to be the one to help her then at that point.
Yep. Thanks.
So that being said, let's continue with the meeting. We also have two other members of the council present who are here because we do want to come back to the agenda item that we started last week on the residential property transfer fees proposal. And we will get to that as our second major agenda item, because I want to make sure that we don't feel constricted on time, but also conscious of the fact that Mandy's chair of the CRC and they're meeting this afternoon later, and she needs a break between meetings certainly to be able to get there. So for all of those reasons, it's we want to do that. The order of the agenda, just so that everybody's aware of it, and then people can choose to drop out and come back a little later if they want, is I'll quickly ask for public comment. Then we're going to discuss the draft of the guidelines, and then talk about the transfer fees, and then the third, and then the last major item of the day is we want to talk about 457 Main Street property acquisition, which was referred to the committee, and Dave Zomack and Rob Moore are here. But if they want to don't want to listen to the next section of the meeting, I'm sure if they come back in half an hour or 45 minutes, they're certainly saving probably at least an hour before we would get to that item, I would guess, but I can't be certain. Any questions about the agenda? And if not, I'm going to see there are a couple members of the public, or at least one member of the public present. And I guess when we get to that item, if you might want to bring Rob Moore into the room too. He's in the attendee group right now. If any members of the public would like to make public comment, this is the time, and please raise your hand. I'm looking at the Okay, there doesn't seem to be a request for public comment, so we'll go on to the guidelines draft. It has been sent, it was sent to the committee for review. I believe it's in the packet also, the revised draft. And I want to thank Kathy for taking over the role of taking the prior version and the comments received at the council meeting and subsequently from counselors and providing us with the draft. So I'm going to turn it over to Kathy to see if she has any introductory comments that she would like to make, or, and if not, how, if you have a way that you like, do you want to take over and proceed through the draft, or how would you like to do it, Kathy?
Anyway, the committee wants to. You sent it to everyone in advance. So I'll just do a quick summary of what I did. For the most part, if someone sent a comment with added wording that fit, I just added it. Every once in a while, more than one person sent a comment on the same section. And so I made an attempt to honor both of them. And there were a couple places where there was a more significant change, so just on this very first page to make it clear that we're not moving away from any of our policy goals. We're just picking where the guidelines are focused in particular areas that have financial implications. So we just wrote them out as up at the top. So that was just a clarity, because it used to just say continue all our policies. Andy, any way people want, if people read it, they could ask questions. The other significant change, if you go to the next page, we wanted to make it clear, and I see in this version now we make it clear twice, but that we're saying there is a limit on tax revenues, and we're recommending against considering an override of an operating budget. So we wrote it very clearly in case anyone didn't get the message. So we put in both what 2.5 does, but also that we are making a strong recommendation that we don't want to even consider it. And then scroll to the next page. The initial one you see on CREST and DEI, we wanted to emphasize that we were able to bring these programs in by extra money we had. So that's why as we go into FY24 and future, when we lose that extra money, that's the tightening of the budget that we're facing. So we just added that this was achievable because we had this extra money. Then I think, there was a clarification down at the bottom that it used to say 3 major tax exempt institutions. We didn't really say that we meant the higher education things. So that was just what were we talking about. Next page. I'm trying not to call out anything that's just purely.
Sean just put his hand up.
Yep.
Yeah, the one thing I would suggest changing is the first edit there. FY23 included the addition of 2 new programs, only achievable by using 500,000 from a one-time transfer. So the 500,000 that we pulled from stabilization wasn't to support those new programs. It was to support possibly having our first debt payment for the Jones Library project. So I wouldn't combine those two. Those things are both accurate, but I wouldn't combine the two and say that one contributed to the other. So I would suggest thinking about that one and writing it a little bit different.
Maybe we could just put a period after DEI. My memory is we pulled money for the firefighters, then Sean as well.
So we used ARPA funds for the firefighters, and we used the stabilization fund as planned to put, if we were going to have our first our first debt payment for the Jones Library project, which would have spiked our capital spending. So But it was not to start the DEI or CREST program. So
When
I
I
think,
wrote,
I think you're right, putting a period. I think it's good to note that. So putting a period after CREST and DEI, I think is accurate, that FY23 did include the addition of 2 new programs, and then maybe rewriting the 500,000 just to say that it was, that did include 500,000 to support capital, I think would be a different way to say it.
Okay,
when I wrote the original, when you follow the logic through, the purpose of having that sentence there was because we were comparing 22 to 23, and it was part of the 22-23 comparison, and that's why it was in there originally. And I think that you could move it back to where it was and then put in DEI and CREST as the next sentence in some way.
Mhm.
okay, we'll fix that to make sure it's accurate.
Michelle has her hand up.
Yep, Michelle.
Okay, oh, I thought I lost the screen. Is it okay to make a comment on anything on this page right now?
Well, if we stay just with this, okay, but is it about this? And if we're finished with this, then we can go to the next. So, so Sean, just so you could give us wording on this, but if we brought in ARPA money to help, and if the point was, we were able to do some things because we had money beyond property tax revenue.
Mhm.
So maybe you can just,
Yeah, I'll try to write it and send it to you, and then you can think about how to fold it in.
okay, so Michelle, go ahead.
Okay, so this is on the last paragraph. I just want to clarify, when you say you proposed no increase to state aid, you're talking to Paul there, or
Yes,
the you?
yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. And I'm not sure, something about the word hope there is just not I don't, it feels a little off to me. And I'm not sure if that sort of language is used elsewhere in the document, but I see that you changed it from recognize to hope. So I just wanted to ask about that.
Okay, the change, this was not my wording, but suggested wording. It was because recognize assumes they're going to do it. So this
Yep.
change that we hope they would do it. And we can't actually, since they've made no statement about that, we can't even say they expect.
Can we say we would like? Like, I'm just wondering if we could be more proactive in our language as like hope is sort of like, well, we hope it happens, but what we would like for it to happen. Is that, I mean, is that true,
Well,
that we would like?
Well, this is, I mean, well, yeah, we could be more proactive, but this is, anyone can give me a word here, but we could also just said, but we could just say, but the governor-elect may be likely, or may increase. The thing is, we don't know what they're going to do. So anyone can suggest wording here. Lynn softened.
I just suggested some wording, Kathy. And I'm asking, would we like for that to happen?
Well, like seems to equally, anyone else can shout out. We would like the governor-elect. We would urge the governor-elect.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is this is not a document that's going to the governor.
This is not going to the governor.
Yeah, so what you could say also is, but we recognize that Governor-elect Healy and Lieutenant Governor-elect Driscoll may support,
Yeah, so if we change
may propose increased state aid.
Yeah,
Right.
that sounds good.
So if we go back to recognize and change are likely to may, it works just fine, right?
Thank you. Yes, I
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Kathy, do you have a document you're editing? Because for all of a sudden, I don't seem to be able to edit this.
I can, if I do my screen to open. Do you want me to?
Yeah, please, because this is not a Word, I don't have a Word document up here.
Oh, you don't have a Word document. Yes. So if you want me, I can share my screen if I'm allowed to. Here they are.
Yeah,
I made it so you could.
Okay,
So you want me to take this down?
You have to stop sharing then. I think.
Yes. Got it.
is mine up on the screen now?
Yes, it
Yes.
is.
Okay, I will capture, the one other one we're fixing, so let me just get up to.
Just while you're at the very beginning, though, let me also say, you either need to not capitalize climate action or you need to capitalize all of the rest.
You also need to fix the subject line.
The subject line.
Yeah, it's just FY23 budget policy guidelines.
That's right. Up at the very top.
Oh, gosh, no one caught that before, Barney.
No.
Thank you.
My hand is still up for another matter, though.
Okay, so let me just get to, since now I'm a scribe. Sean's going to fix the one, so we
Recognize.
yeah, I got it.
Yeah. And I think it was may propose because they don't support, they propose. They're filing the bill.
Okay. Okay, so Bernie.
We may take this up again, or maybe it might be better to take this up when we get to section 8, but we continue to insist that the higher institutions of higher education provide us with pilot payments. I've tried to make the point, and maybe nobody agrees, that if you look at the Boston program, they give credit for community benefits. And it's oftentimes easier for an institution to, or the CFO of an institution to donate services, goods or services than it is to write a check. So if my point simply is, if we're looking for assistance, we need to understand that the colleges, or the university and the colleges may be able to provide us with beneficial activities. For example, Amherst College keeps a chunk of its property on the tax rolls,
So
and that counts. I think, I don't know if it's still true, but at one point they were the largest taxpayer in town. So again, if we're going to, when we get to section 8, we may want, and you reference the Boston program, there may, I would strongly suggest that we put in a line about engaging in activities that benefit the community as well as cash contributions.
okay, so when we get to that page, Bernie, those words were added, but you may want them to be added more strongly, so I'll point them out
Okay,
to you.
let me look again at section 8 and see
When you
if
get
there's.
to the end, they said,
Okay.
and community benefits, but you may want them added more strongly.
Okay.
Should I, now I guess I'm the scroller. So
So,
just,
Kathy, let me just, I can wait until later, but the state program actually is called pilots.
right,
So we have to differentiate how we say that.
okay, so let's look at it later then, because
Fine. You might want to just mark that we want to make that part consistent with later. If you want to send me this document, I can become the scribe.
okay.
The
So-
other thing to know is though that pilot has also been used for proposed legislation, and this is not just recent, this is for many, many years.
Yeah.
To allow towns to require some sort of payment consistent with the statute. And, you know, that's why I think the pilot keeps coming up in this fashion.
Okay, so I'm just gonna,
That's
Lynn,
good.
it'd be hard for me to get out and send it and in, so I'll just,
Good.
so we'll just keep going. And the word pilot means payment in lieu of taxation. So if we want to add other words, we have to add them later. So should I keep scrolling?
Please.
Okay, so there are a few places that it's wordsmithing, so just making clear that the budget committee would also, that the finance committee is providing advice. we deleted a section that was later. You'll see it later. Okay, so on reparations, we changed the wording, and I double checked it with Michelle so that we would address the concern that were we advocating for new policy, we just state that when we are considering the stabilization funds after the FY23 is stabilized, we will we will need to consider the amount. So we just changed it to a simple statement. And Michelle, this is the language I shared with you that you gave me a thumbs up for. So
Michelle, your hand is up.
is that from before?
I apologize. No, it's not. And the language is fine. I will take it down.
Okay, so then on the next page, deleted improve the rating because this was actually a Lynn edit. It's highly unlikely that we can get a higher rating than AA plus. So we just get rid of the statement, not to.
Andy,
Not-
just a quick heads up that Alicia has joined us. I just brought her into the room.
Okay, Alicia, can you hear?
Yes, thank you, Andy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the major change on this page is BCG is already met. There was no recommendation to do anything else. So we just deleted the paragraph. And inserted that we're good to go with 2.5 for each of the major divisions, percent increase. I'm waiting to see, Sean has a hand up.
It was just in regards to the BCG meeting. I think you're right. There was no recommendations. It did seem like there was a general consensus that operating budgets need more money. All operating budgets need more money, not just the schools, but we talked about sort of the needs of the town and the library as well. So it may be it's already kind of said throughout this document, but just it may be worth clarifying that the sort of the consensus from that meeting was to put more money into operating budgets when we can. Or that, at least that was my takeaway from that meeting.
Yeah, so is it good enough for the committee, I think, saying that given what's going on, even living within this is a very tight operating budget. So, rather than saying if there's more money, put it into operating, but that would be, this is a council document. So are we saying that should money become available, we want to put it into operating, but which is what that would imply. I'm just looking to Lynn.
I'm
Andy.
actually more comfortable with the way it's stated here. And because adding what Sean just suggested, I mean, I think that goes without saying. And we did it this past year when we had money as we closed out the year. I just don't think we want to hold out that hope all the time that we're going to be giving everybody increases.
Okay, so I'm going to leave as is unless I hear more. I noticed when I read this, there's a typo here. We recognize multiple fronts require a multi-year. It says multiple, so I'll fix that. Will
Okay.
require. This was supposed to go out. But the point here, and this was when we talked about that, we're just advising on next year's budget. So not everything can get accomplished in 1 year. And we realize that some of these are multi-year strategy and that we have to live within available revenue. So this was kind of a restatement of what we've said multiple times. Not much of a change.
So Kathy, I don't have a raise hand function.
Okay, just that
So
I can.
let me just go up to where the yellow is.
Yep.
They are now town manager goals is the way GOL is going. And so in the top yellow, at the top of the screen where it says council and town manager goals, right there.
Yep.
It just should say town manager goals.
Capitalize the G.
Yep.
Oh, we're going to do a real word edit here. Okay.
Okay. And then with the second yellow FY, yep, that's fine.
Okay. Just stop me if I'm scrolling too fast. So what was added on this page, we talked about it, that we might need to do a salary study this year to inform the next year budget. And at least one committee member said, well, should the schools do one? And I think, Sean, you said the schools may have done one already. So we put both pieces in here on a maybe we need to do this. And this was, everyone said, you know, if there's a big change mid-year, it's going to come back, but it's also going to come back to the finance committee. So it's just, that wording was missing before. So that's all that other red is.
Yeah.
We had a statement that the operating, once the schools are consolidated, they're going to save money. So we're going to see this hopefully in 2026, but we haven't decided who's going to benefit. I mean, clearly the town benefits from it, but it questioned. So that sentence was just added as, I think, a reminder. The next paragraph just reminds people that the capital improvement plan includes a joint capital planning committee. And we added, and this is a strong statement, every single piece of capital, buildings, improvements, vehicles, are being talked about with a climate lens in that. So that was added to make it clear that we are doing that and the town is doing that. Most of these others, we added town recreational fields and land in the last discussion, but we add the clarifying that the regional schools has a separate process. So that is a different process for those playing fields. So this is just making sure the long list on the capital inventory and multi-year plan includes fields. Okay, budget process. This was, Lynn nicely caught that we have to swear in the new counselors before they get to do anything. It's not just inauguration. So those are wording changes on when the new counselors get involved. Management performance goals. Okay.
I would call it the town manager's goals.
So keep it town manager's goals.
Okay.
Okay, then we added, this was, I can't even remember who.
It was me, the semi-annual.
Yeah, that we don't want to just get an end of the year report. We want to get a mid-year report. So it was semi-annually.
Okay, let me, maybe I didn't say it right then. The problem with this amount of money that UMass pays, the university pays the schools, is that was set on a figure that was figured out about 4 years ago. It's never been reevaluated. My guess is the cost per pupil may have gone up, and that should be reevaluated at least every other year.
Okay.
So it's not semi-annually, it's
other year.
every other year, right? And as far as I know, we've not ever asked for a reevaluation of that. And now that they're back in North Village, I think it's appropriate to think about that.
Okay, so now we're in the clarifying that Smith made a gift and it was a multi-year gift. And this is Bernie, where I added the consider actions that could benefit the community in addition to financial support. And later we added again.
I see it once. Okay, maybe I'm misreading this, but in the sentence here, they need to avoid actions that compete with businesses and to consider actions that benefit. That the benefits to the community and consider actions that could benefit the community. That I really think that needs to stand as a separate sentence as it reads now. It's like, don't compete with us and do nice things, but do nice things. So that should be somewhere.
Okay, it appears later. Let me just show you the other place.
All right.
Okay, so maybe it doesn't appear strongly in.
Right, yeah. I also have qualms about they need to avoid actions that compete with businesses. Is that aimed at UMass's food service?
It is.
Yes,
Um,
and we put that in last year
yeah,
because there was a real concern when they started catering in town. Not
Mhm.
just that people were going to eat there, but bringing.
right. Well, there's also 30 Boltwood. So I mean, I think if we have a challenge with UMass catering, we should say we have a challenge with UMass catering and not paint that with a broad brush.
Okay, I think
Because typically they don't, I mean, typically the colleges, the schools don't compete other than UMass catering, as far as I know.
Well, some of the bookstores would say that when they don't use our bookstores anymore for textbooks either.
Yeah, well, that was a fact, it's the faculty has that problem.
So does anyone else, this may be the only place, I think 30 Boltwood is actually taxed. The whole hotel is. But
Yeah, it's taxed and the restaurant's taxed. But I mean, that's a business that competes with other restaurants in town.
well, I think of it as business in town. So anyone, I'm just waiting to see this community, in addition to, it's also been added to the town manager goals to seek financial support and community benefits. So we did do parallelism here in the goals.
No, that's fine then. I'll let it be.
Okay, and then this on the last page, it's so this was to make it clear that we're talking about the pilot payments we get on state-owned land and new legislation that opens the door to leverage to negotiate pilot agreements with for leverage. So this was added to make both of these clear, that they both would require a change. The charter requires a change, and this other formula is not benefiting us. So this was suggested both by counselors, and then we discussed it. And that's it. There aren't a huge number. I would say there are very few substantive changes here. They were clarifying sentences.
Yeah. Let me just, I think we're ready to take this to the council. I mean, there's a few changes. Kathy, we can probably get those finished up and bring it in by Monday and put it in the packet tomorrow. Michelle has her hand up though.
Michelle?
To make sure from Paul about the goal priorities being maybe somewhat off from or needing to have some more consistency.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Michelle, I was going to mention that next, and since your voice is not coming through clearly, so I'll mention that. But this is a document that basically says, here's the financial picture. The problem we're now running into with the goals is, and CRC has been working very diligently on these. The goals imply the expenditure of money that the financial guidelines basically say we don't have. So, for example, I hate the bottom line is we can't go out and print more money, and so the real discussion is going to have to be on the goals. And at GOL the other day, we're pretty sure that the goals document is not going to come back to the council for final approval until January 9th. And Paul the other night during our council meeting nodded and basically said that was okay. But there's some conversations that are going to have to take place about the areas in the goals that ask for essentially new resources or more staff time than it's perceived that we have. So Michelle and I, and maybe Andy to some extent, need to decide how to bring that conversation to the council as we firm up the goals. But I don't see how we can change a financial guidelines based on what is said here, because what is said here is the real picture of our finances. And the issue with the goals is going to be a matter of making some tough choices. And they are tough. They're very tough choices.
So I think. So then- Go on, Andy, but I was just saying that if we could finalize this document, that other discussion can happen. And I think the other discussion, it would be good to repeat this table that I just did, that this is our budget, this is the revenues. And there, aside from grants that can be brought in, we only got 2 million more than we had last year to work with. This is it. And, so that's the context, Lynn, that the town manager goals has to operate in, where
Right.
anything needs money. There are things he can do that don't require money, right?
Exactly. So I personally, or as a counselor on this committee, I feel that this is ready to come to the council with a few of the tweaks that we've discussed today. And I think to bring it to the council on Monday would be a very strong move.
So Andy, I'm turning this back to you to chair.
Okay.
So I will save that. I'm going to save this document and I will double check it for typos or duplicate words. But otherwise, I'm not making any more changes to it. We've got the one, a double check. Sean's going to give me a sentence that we don't have yet. And then I'll share it back. So I'm going to do file save.
Okay, well, thank you. No, what I was going to say, as far as the interrelationship with the goals, we made a decision early on in this process that we were not going to attempt in this document to set priorities for policy, that was going to be left to the other discussion, and that we were going to talk about the financial reality and then try and bring in the council separate process by reference only, because for us to make that decision was going to make the whole discussion of the guidelines much more complicated than it needed to be. And so I think that we've gone the right direction. It is important, council, remember. And the only thing that I had thought about this morning, and I brought this up to Lynn earlier today in a different context, but the Fed has made the point very strongly that the reason that they keep jacking up interest rates is because the average increase in the goal of the Fed has been, over the last years, 2% per year increase in inflation and 2% inflation limit, and to try and manage towards that goal. And that currently inflation is 3 times as much. Well, when you put that together with Proposition 2 and the 2.5% limit, it's the same reality that's bumping into each other. And so this isn't just an Amherst problem, but I'm not sure that it's worth adding anything to our guidelines at this point about that. I may just say it at the meeting when we present.
Well, and we do say inflation has come back in. So there's a sentence. I don't think Bernie's got his hand up. Yeah.
Well, American City and County, which I don't think is published anymore, used to publish a municipal inflation rate. And municipalities have a higher rate of inflation than the consumer price index because of how we operate and what we buy. So if the if the nominal inflation CPI is supposed to be 2%, cities and towns are typically looking at a point and a half higher. And that was the intent behind 2.5. And by the way, Citizens for Limited Taxation is dissolving itself. You know, the intent was to starve the beast by setting a rate budget increase that was impractical. And we've dodged that in a number of ways, but there's nothing sacred about 2.5. I think we need to make the point that you know, we're looking more of an inflation, likely at a higher inflation rate than the consumer price index, for one. And for two, I think that Lynn's suggestion is a really good one. That you know, it's frustrating to me to be on the finance committee and then to look at goals which require the town manager to spend money that just ain't there. So that's it.
So either Lynn or I can just say that when we introduce the topic at the council meeting on Monday.
That would be fine.
I think what would be in order at this point is a motion to accept the revisions and forward them to the council with the committee's recommendation.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, so the motion's been made and seconded. I don't know if Athena, are you still taking notes, or do you have the motion?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
And you have the motion.
I do. Would it be acceptable if I just added the budget guidelines, the title of the document, so that's included in the motion?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so everybody knows what the motion is. It's essentially that we're accepting the changes and forwarding it to the council and with our recommendation to adopt the guidelines. And I'm going to call for a vote. I'll go back with the same list. Lynn?
Support. I mean, yes.
Bob?
Support.
Matt?
Support.
Bernie?
Support.
Michelle?
Aye.
Kathy?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Alicia?
Abstain.
Okay, so the vote is of council members 4-0 with 1 abstention and 3 resident members of the committee supporting. So with that, I think that we have completed our work on the guidelines and can go on to the next agenda item, which is the going back to the discussion of the special act on residential property transfer fees. And Mandy and Anna are in the meeting again for the purpose. I think we have the same problem that we had last time, that there's a quorum of the council present, and we have been advised that the 2 sponsors are here, can answer questions, but cannot participate in deliberations because of the open meeting law. And but I think that as I said before, a lot of what we're going to talk about today is going to be process. And I don't know if, Lynn, do you want to start this out, or shall I? Because both of us have had communications with Representative Dom and Senator Comerford.
As has Anna, who was part of the meeting with Representative Dom and Senator Comerford. In order for us to go forward on this, we would have to file special legislation. In order to file special legislation, the council needs to vote. And then we need to forward that. Representative Dom has, and Comerford both, have particularly urged us to do that, if we're going to go forward, to do that sooner rather than later, because there are similar bills coming forward from other towns, largely from Eastern Mass, which is a point I want to get to in a moment. And that she foresees that the bills would probably have hearings at the same time, and that there might then be an attempt to merge them into one bill. But the main thing is that we need to be at the table of the discussions that are going on with the Eastern Mass towns. And one of the reasons is the following. If we're going to go forward with this, the Eastern Mass towns want to set a sale limit of 2 million. Well, we don't have houses in Western Mass, except for a particular one I can think of, that sell for 2 million, okay? And so we really need to be at the table so we can talk about how do you set a price based on the cost of housing where it's being levied. That's number one. And the other piece, and now so anyway, that bottom line with regard to all of that is we need to decide if we're going forward. We need a vote here. We need a vote in the council. We need some language, and we need to be at the table with the other communities that are thinking about this and that are filing legislation. Anna, would you have anything else to add to that?
No, I do have some things that I think respond to some of the questions that we got last week. If that's if it's okay, Andy or Sean, if I can share my screen.
Well, let's hold on for a second. If it's
Okay.
not directly related to the process
No.
that Lynn has introduced.
Nope, nothing, not necessarily, other than to reiterate that there is time pressure on this, that we want to get this in early.
Yeah, let's hold it. We'll come back to that in a few minutes, but let's stick with this. And I just wanted to say that I've had communications with Representative Dom, which are obviously consistent with what she reported to the two of you. And she was did not give a particular date, but I sort of got the impression, sort of as soon as we can. It doesn't have to be at the beginning of the session, but it shouldn't be delayed. And I sort of took that to mean try and do something in January, because we have no idea when the hearings will be set. So I think that was pretty much what I got out of it, which sounds consistent with what the two of you had. So I just wanted to report that. Kathy, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I do. Before we get into the substance of what this would do or any concerns about it, if we're talking about the asking for legislation, would the legislation, and you all know the wording, I'm sure by heart, would this give us the option to do this, but not say we are definitely doing it? So if we have the option to do it, then we could be reporting out of finance that we want to be able to explore this, which would require legislation if we ever want to do it. And the timing is such that we need to move this before the language of what we might want to do in our own bylaw. And that would make me a lot more comfortable that we have time then to talk about what we started talking about last time, unintended consequences, and how you could address this or that, which seemed to me, Mandy had some quick, very good answers that we dealt with that in this wording in the bylaw, or we dealt with that in this wording of the bylaw, but we don't have to focus on that right now if we're basically saying this is enabling legislation, which is different than I think about the ranked choice voting, where we were asking, we say we're going to do it. So
Right.
we've got this worded in a way. And then my second thought, given what you just said, Lynn, if a dollar figure goes in that fits Eastern Mass better than it would fit any Western Mass municipality, that legislation would have to allow for different kinds of, if we go in as a group, it would have to be worded in a way that said in however, and outside of Eastern Boston, people could set their own limits or something, would give permission. So I don't know where the flexibility is in that wording. So that's kind of a question because I don't have the draft in front of us. So is it permissive as opposed to saying we're going to do it? And secondly, do we around at what point does this trigger? And Mandy, you had said avoid specifics, or you, Anna, said avoid specifics in the legislation to leave us free to make those decisions at the bylaw level. So I don't know where the $2 million, so that's a question, and I'll take my hand out.
Okay, I'm just going in order the hands went up as according, so Mandy is next, and we have to please be mindful of the warning we have from Athena about not deliberating.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to answer Kathy's question, which is section 1, the very first sentence. So it is enabling legislation, and I'll just read the first sentence, which says, except where otherwise exempt, the town of Amherst may by bylaw impose a fee of up to 2%. So not only did we in the bylaw make it enabling, in this special act, make it enabling so that the council would have to actually enact the bylaw for the fee to go in. We actually gave the discretion to enact a bylaw that does 0.5% or 1% or 1.5% or 2%.
Okay.
So,
That answers my question. And the reason I asked that is because I don't have enough information to focus on the bylaw. So I wanted to deal with that in a separate session, and some of the information we asked you for, Anna, I need time to think about it. But that didn't apply to this if it's enabling. Thank you.
Michelle?
Yeah, I was just, given we're not on this, if we move forward with it, it sounds, we wouldn't be seeking the local approval through a townwide vote. We're doing it through the council. And so I think it will be really important to try to educate the public about this. And I know that Anna and Mandy will be way on top of that, but just in terms of, combating concerns and giving the public the ability to provide input on this. Because as I understand it, it would go to a council meeting, and of course it would be on the agenda and folks could come and provide public comment. But how are we actually letting the town know more broadly that this is something that we're moving forward with? Because I do think giving the public the opportunity to weigh in on this is important.
Okay, thank you. That was consistent with what my thinking was, but I'll come to that later. I'm just going to keep going. Anna? You're muted though.
Got it. Sorry. I wanted to respond to the second part of Kathy's question, which really is about the need for us to come in with our home rule right off the bat, is because we don't want to get lumped in. So we're not pitching the combination of all these transfer fee legislation, all this transfer fee legislation. Oof. It also is, just to throw a quick plug in for Senator Comerford's bill, it is in support of bills like hers that would remove the need for this to be special legislation in the future and would enable towns to set their own fees, not based on a $2 million mark, but based on, up to 2% based on how they figure it. So that's one of the reasons why it's important to get this in soon, is that we don't want all of the eastern states or eastern cities. Seriously, I don't know why my brain has left my body. We don't want all of them to come in with that 2 million or higher mark. And I have a table that shows where different cities and towns are at. and have that become the standard, right? We need to demonstrate that it's different. And that's also one of the reasons why Mandy and I left the proposed flexibility for the percentage that it's based on as well, because we need to make sure that we're meeting the market where it's at and not doing something that's ridiculous. But that will all be discussed in the bylaw.
Lynn?
To answer the question about public input, Michelle, I think that's critical. I also think we need to do something similar for the sewer and water regs and bylaws. We haven't really held a community forum like CRC has been doing with the rental bylaw. And I think we need to do that with this and also with that. The second thing is I really like the idea that we have flexibility at the local level. And of the various comments that were made last time, and I actually can debate since I'm on the committee. I was really taken by Bob's point that, here I am, I've saved all my life, all of my savings are in my house, and now you want 2% as I try to retire on what I put in my house. And so I'm hoping that at the local level, we can come up with some way to accommodate for those people where that is what they have without getting too nosy into their personal finances. And then the other thing is what I'm assuming, and Anna, you just addressed this, and basically that is that this would be a statewide law. We want to just make sure that the statewide law is written with the flexibilities that we need so that it fits for our community. So thank you.
Bernie?
This is going to be a heavy lift because there'll be many, many groups out there that will find ways to oppose this or try to limit it. So it's important that we get in before the late filing deadline, and it's important that we're at the table. I'm not as concerned about, the the person who's had a house for 50 years and is now being asked to give up 1% of it, because I think, if I understand, it's 1% from the seller, 1% from the buyer. And I'd like to be able to have the ability to customize this in some way, manner, or form. And again, I just think it's important that we're at the table, and I'd like to move forward with this. This is not going to solve in itself. It's not going to solve our affordable housing program, but I think it's a piece. It's a component that we need to have in place.
Okay, since everybody has been called on once, I'll say a couple things and then go back to the people whose hands are up. One is you used the term late filing, and we have been advised that late filing does not apply under current rules to home rule petitions. Home rule petitions can currently be filed at any time. Late filing doesn't apply. The deadline is only applying to other bills other than local requested option type things as this is. So I just wanted to clarify that, because that was very explicit in Representative Tom's email responding to me. And the question that she also very strongly addressed was the single bill that she, I think, is very concerned that not combining into a single bill will lose the option to get a special bill through, and that we need, that our strongest chance of getting permission to do what we want to do, if there's going to be a bill for multiple communities, is to be a part of that bill, that going separate is not an advisable strategy. And you may want to pursue that further with her directly if you feel you need clarification. But I don't, I think that what she said, what I understood her to say, makes sense from what my experience in working with the legislature over quite a number of years in my legal aid work. So I guess back to Mandy.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to add one thing, which was an update. As we met with you last meeting, we said we were going in front of the Housing Trust that week. And the Housing Trust voted to support this, but with one change, which was to section 3 regarding the remainder of funds after the 250,000. And they voted to support it with the addition of themselves as one of 3 places that the remainder of the funds would go per a bylaw, allocated as a bylaw. So I just thought I'd update the committee on that.
Good. Thank you, Michelle.
If this were to become a statewide, so if this were to pass statewide, because I'm taking Lynn's point and Anna's point, I think about, you know, what happens in Eastern Mass is very different than what's happening here. So does our home rule petition just go away, or what happens to our home rule petition if it's in process, or if it's already been approved, if then a state approval on this happens?
A couple things I would say in response to that. One is that if a home rule petition is filed from a number of communities, which is what it could be happening, and there's a proposal for a statewide omnibus bill to address all communities, they just wouldn't act on the local bills. They would only act on the one that falls out of the committee process, which would then be the omnibus bill to cover all communities. So that's why it's important, however, that we get our bill in, and which then gives us a seat at the table, essentially. And secondly, that we get into the bill things that we feel strongly should be there into our local, into what we ask them, what we ask Mindy to file on our behalf, even if it may not come out in exactly that fashion. So it sort of gives us the ability to say, this is what we would like it to be. You know, it doesn't take away the opportunities to get input at an appropriate point down the line, as you indicated, or make further changes as we adopt the bylaw. So, Anna.
Could I just quickly follow up, and maybe Anna will be able to answer this? Would that be okay, Andy?
Yes.
Okay, just a quick follow up. In the other communities where this has already passed, are they using the same system where the bylaw in the municipality dictates the details of the program, or is there some other model that's used in those communities?
I can answer that, Andy.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to first back up just for a second. The legislation that Joe filed is to allow communities to opt to do this. So I don't know that it would necessarily undo if ours passed. I don't know that it would necessarily undo what we had. It's basically just saying that communities don't have to do a home rule in the future. It would be more similar to CPA, right, where you opt in versus needing to go through the legislature. That's my understanding of her bill, and if folks have a different understanding, that's fine. And we are in support of that. The only difference is that her bill has the full amount going to affordable, and ours gives us flexibility. So that's one of the differences there. If it's okay to answer Michelle's second question, may I share my screen?
Sure. If
I can do it.
Linda's the one who's controlling that.
All right, so these are communities who have passed home rule petitions that are awaiting state approval. So Boston, Concord, Somerville, Brookline, Provincetown, Chatham, Cambridge, Arlington, and Nantucket. And Martha's Vineyard has received state approval. And then Barnstable County imposes a local transfer charge as well as a state transfer fee. So you can see there are a number who have submitted this and are awaiting state approval. Our estimation is that these cities and towns will once again submit in the next session. And just to show you, this is my really quick, I know it's not full, but and you're seeing where I have question marks because I'm still trying to confirm things, but bear with me. This is a quick job. So just to show you what folks are proposing, Boston, it's up to 2% on properties over 2 million. Somerville, it's 2%, I believe, on all properties, but it does not apply to owner occupied. So it's 2% on all non-owner occupied properties. Those are both split between the buyer and seller. Nantucket and Provincetown both have a 0.5% fee on all properties, except I believe in Nantucket, it's only the amount over 2 million. Concord has a 1% on properties over 600,000. Cambridge has,
Yeah,
sorry.
you don't need to read them all. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't sure if folks were on their phones and couldn't see the screen, Kathy. I wanted to make sure they had it. So Cambridge is 2% over 1 million. Arlington has a lot of flexibility in there, somewhere between 0.05% and 2%. And then they go by the state median. Brookline has a 2% over 500,000 on the amount over, and Chatham has a 0.5% over 2 million. So there's a variety here, but the reason why these are all accessible to me to pull is that they put their amounts in their home rule. So our structure is different. We are giving ourselves flexibility. These cities and towns have, they've given themselves some flexibility. Most of them say up to, 2% or between a certain percentage, but it's in their home rule. So they're kind of boxed into that, for lack of a better term. So we are unique from all my accounting in terms of how we have structured ours to give the local, to give ourselves more ability to flex as needed within the demands of our town.
Okay, I'll continue on. Thank you. That's helpful. Lynn?
You're muted, Lynn.
I'd like to move us to the discussion on process about what is our next steps, because I'm watching the hour and Mandy Joe's going to have to go real soon. And so are we as a finance committee basically saying at our next meeting, we'll start looking at what and how do we want to proceed?
I mean, I have some thoughts on that. So maybe I should just say this, that I think we definitely need to move into what it is that we want to file. The question that we're, sitting here and getting into the debate on whether the home rule petitions will disappear if there's an omnibus bill, and it doesn't really matter because we still get to the point that all of these bills will affect our ability to be at the table and to lobby for the provisions that we think are important, including that it not be all for affordable housing, for example. So I think that what we really want to do is at our next meeting move to the discussion of what should be in the bill to file and what we want to recommend to the council. The council in the end will have to make the decision as to what it wants to propose to file and whether to propose to file. But we want to try and get it back to the council so that the council can act in January. That would be my thought, which would mean that we would probably want to have public comment generally limited to what public comment takes place at meetings that are relevant or any meeting actually, and have a more formalized process later. But that would be my suggestion. It's obviously up to larger group. So Anna, did you have anything else? Because your hand is still up.
Yes.
And Kathy was next.
I re-raised it because I did have an answer to one of the questions from the last meeting that I wanted to just get to briefly, which is first off, there's some really wonderful resources that I'm happy to send you, Andy, as chair, that if folks are looking to do some light academic reading, that they can dig into some studies that have been done. But the lit review that I did basically boils down to this quote that I found, which is, though such a tax could marginally impact transactions in the high end of the real estate market, it is unlikely to have a noticeable impact on other housing transactions because buyers of higher priced real estate have preferences very different from those of other home buyers. These studies tended to find that there is an incentive once these fees are passed because 38 other states just allow this without needing to go through all these processes. So there are significant, there is data on this. So the studies found that there is incentive to sell below the threshold or below the cutoff, and that above the threshold listed prices tended to fall a little bit. However, most of the research is actually not necessarily all aligned with itself, right? So there's different case studies that show, Toronto, there was much more of a significant decline. In DC, there was an insignificant effect. There was essentially no effect. So there's varying information, which for me and for at least one of the papers indicates that the flexibility based on your location is really important. So being able to the ability for municipalities to adjust based on their market conditions as they see this going forward is very important. So reiterating the need for this to be regulated by bylaw so that we can adjust based on market conditions. And I will send these to you to send out to the committee if that's okay, Andy.
I also going to ask you about what you showed earlier with the other towns.
Yep.
Research, and I think the question that I'm going to have to check with Athena about is that she may feel that since she showed it at the meeting, we need to put it in the packet.
I'm fully prepared for that. And if I hadn't been doing it 15 minutes before the meeting, it would already be to you to be in the packet, but I was working on this right before the meeting. So yes, I'll send it to you.
Thank you. And I appreciate you doing that. Kathy.
I'll make it short. Andy, I agree with what you said and what Lynn said earlier. And I think our next meeting it's on the 20th. I would like to just focus on the proposed piece that we would be sending forth to the legislature and have the discussion be pretty short, because I feel like we've gotten a fair amount of information that we could put more information in this, but we didn't. Because I think moving that forward, there's a longer discussion, and Anna, I really want those resources to decide whether we want to do this, but to leave the door open to the possibility of doing it and being at the table, I think is important. So I don't think it's a long discussion, is actually where I am on this. And it's partly when, Lynn, you're going to be able to bring it back to the council. But I think if we just focus on that rather than the bylaw, I'm much more comfortable with a short discussion and focus to then move it. That's my opinion.
Okay, let me ask you one question, Kathy. Would you also agree to have the discussion starting with and framed by the legislation that was drafted by Mandy and Anna that began the process so that we work off of it?
Absolutely, because I think I don't want to start from scratch. So the only thing Lynn has her hand up on this, a quick discussion on, we already heard, if we looked at other versions, they've put more detail into it, but I would just want anything that is significant that's in the wording to be flagged beyond the first sentence, which Mandy just read to us. So I just would want it flagged so that we didn't say, oh, this all looks good. If there's some interesting tidbit in there.
Lynn?
Yep, I'm just suggesting that in the packet for next week, We have that draft. We also have what Anna just showed us. We have a copy of Joe's legislation. And that we focus our discussion on where we want to make sure that any state legislation creates the flexibility for us.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so.
And then we would target to bring this to the council on the 9th of January. Maybe. If
Okay.
not, it's not until the 23rd. Okay.
Okay, but we will try for the 9th is our initial target and make adjustment if necessary. And I want to emphasize a couple things. One is that to remember that the proposed legislation is in the packet from the last meeting a week ago. So that it was January 6th, I believe. I think it's in that packet. There's also in there a possible bylaw that is not subject to discussion now. We're really focusing on the legislation only. So if you're looking and spending time at it, of course, it'd be appreciated, but stick to the bylaw and usually stick to the legislation, not the bylaw. Michelle?
Yeah, just one more quick thing. So I know that Mandy and Anna are super like smart about all of this and have probably already looked into this, but it's interesting that all of the other communities that Anna just shared with us aren't using this model that you're proposing, which clearly gives a lot more flexibility. So I'm just wondering if if it's worth just looking into, whether there's any problem with the model that we're trying to use here, or maybe you already have. But it's just curious to me, not that I don't think that, I think that, it's not to dismiss your creativity in terms of coming up with this, but to say that it's interesting that no other community has chosen a similar model. And I'm just like questioning why. Does that, so do we know for sure that this model is a model, meaning the home rule with the bylaw? Do we know for sure that that's a model that can work for this?
Can I respond, Andy?
Yes, go ahead.
So, I mean, nothing is for sure, but we have spoken to both Joe and Mindy about this approach, and they did not see any problems for us to shift up our approach necessarily. But I hear you. I mean, we are doing it differently because, we're special, but
that's what I was trying to get at. I hope you heard that.
No. I mean, I think that it's more so, I think we believe that this method works best for our community. And so we have to be true to what we believe is going to be best for our community. And so, that's why we took this approach. And we haven't spoken to the other communities, but I am in touch with someone from the local housing option coalition to talk through, and we're hoping to connect in the next week or so. So, but our legislators are aware that this is our approach and did not see it as a problem.
Awesome. Thank you. Of
course.
Okay, anything else? So I don't think we need action because this is a process. We've been discussing process. This isn't substantive. I don't think we need a motion. If anybody wants to offer a motion, of course, they're entitled to, but I don't think it's necessary.
I don't think we need a motion. We've just said, here's the agenda for next meeting, right?
Yeah, we'll come to the whole question of next meeting after we do the next agenda item. So I want to get onto Dave Zomack and take up the proposed purchase of land on 457 Main Street, because I know that that's a time crunch issue also. So anything else on this?
Andy, I've been made aware that there is a person who came into the audience late and would like to make public comment specifically on this.
Okay. Since Anna's still here, I think that Mandy had to drop out because of her other meeting, but Anna's still here. If there is a person, since we offered public comment earlier and there was none, I'll come back to public comment.
The public comment in this case is about the VFW purchase.
About
The VFW purchase, not
the
this.
VFW purchase, never mind, then get to it in a second. So on, it's the public comment apparently is not about the.
That's okay. People want to talk to me normally anyway. It's all right.
Okay, so I'm going to.
Thank you all.
Bye, thank you.
Andy, Rob and I are fine if you want to take this public comment before we go, that's fine too. It's up to you.
Why don't you introduce the purchase plan? I don't know if you or Sean were going to do this, but I think that we had a good introduction at the council meeting. I have forwarded that material to all members of this committee, since not every member is a counselor. And and I think it was pretty self-explanatory when you take the totality of the documents. The thing that was wanted to make clear is the funding mechanism, which either you or Sean or Rob can talk about. So
Sure. Well, I think, I'm joined by Rob Mora tonight, and, we could just quickly, I don't, unless you want us to, we could go through the PowerPoint, or if the committee has the PowerPoint, that's fine. You probably, many of you saw that at the council meeting, but happy to just go through this quickly. As everyone knows, we have been fortunate to have our partners, Craig's Doors, providing sheltering in our community for over 10 years. The town has supported Craig's Doors in various ways through the years, with staff support as well as financial support. In all of those years, Craig's Doors has been fortunate to find locations at various houses of worship, and they're currently at the Emmanuel Lutheran Church on North Pleasant Street, and also renting rooms at the University Motor Lodge. About a year and a half ago or so, as part of the town manager's goals, working with Paul Bockelman, Rob and I began to look at properties throughout town with the goal of trying to find a location that might be a fit for a permanent shelter. The industry standard now, what is happening in communities all throughout Massachusetts as well as New England, is many of these facilities are combining both a place for sheltering as well as permanent supportive housing. Projects like this are happening all over Eastern Mass. Right here in the Valley, we have various nonprofits working in Springfield, Northampton, and Greenfield to do very similar things to what Amherst is proposing here at 457 Main Street. And maybe if I could turn it over to Rob just for a quick summary of why the VFW site. Again, I want to acknowledge the leadership of the VFW in general. They have been really open and supportive of working with us. We worked through an appraisal process with them and a purchase and sale agreement. And I'll turn it over to Rob for, the quick specifics on why this property.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, so this is a almost 1 acre piece of property in the neighborhood business district. This district allows for a number of possible uses, but in particular, the uses that we're looking at allowed by right in the location by site plan review. The dimensional requirements fit very nicely for the intended use, for enough density for the supportive housing units based on the land area and space available. The property, contains a building that was built in 1961. It really doesn't have a whole lot of value for the intended purpose. It's a single story with a finished lower level. It is not fully handicapped accessible. It doesn't contain sprinkler systems and just isn't of a quality construction that would be suitable for change of use. We also, looked at this property by location, great access to the downtown, sidewalks, walkways, crosswalks in all directions, bus stops directly across the street, and a nice flat level area to redevelop would make it an easy project to start. Approximately half of the property is, covered by either pavement or building. We envision that being removed and the site being prepped for future, construction, new development. Thank you.
Thank you. Shauna may turn to you on the next piece, but the proposed order relates to recommending the purchase, or to allowing the purchase, the order would, but it does not specify funding. And you had an answer to that question for the committee, I believe.
Yeah, so the proposed funding source for this is the American Rescue Plan Act. The town went through a process to allocate funds. Roughly $1 million was allocated towards supporting the homeless. And so David Zomek has been sort of in charge of that pot of money and determining the best way to use those funds, and has brought forward this project. It doesn't need to be reappropriated because the council has already authorized the use and expenditure of the ARPA funds. So it's really within the town manager's purview to spend the ARPA monies. But because this requires a land purchase, that part of it's being brought back for discussion.
Andy, if I could just add before we open it up to questions, it is very early in our process. As we stated at the town council meeting, we do need town council authorization to purchase. As Sean said, the source of funding, $775, is coming from ARPA funds. We will have some remaining funds that we hope to allocate to some pre-development work that Rob and his team will, and the planning department will spearhead. We also recognize that this is new information for the community. There will, we will need, this is not an effort that Amherst can shoulder alone. We are going to need partners in this. Obviously, Craig's Doors could be a partner, but they are a service provider. We're going to need development partners. We have a wonderful group of development nonprofits and other similar organizations in the Valley, some of whom you all know about, the Valley CDCs, the Wayfinders, the Home City developers out of Springfield, and the list goes on. Many of them very experienced at this kind of work. And again, we are not going to be able to, this will be a heavy lift. It'll take some years to do. And honestly, it's going to be some millions of dollars. This is not something that the town can do on its own, but site control, as Rob said, having a flat, accessible site that is developable with the right zoning, close to all the amenities and services that Rob said on water and sewer, that's what make it an important piece of property to look at. We know that there will be opportunities for us to do outreach to the business community, to those who live close to the parcel, and all of that process is ahead. But it's a little too early to be speculating about size and numbers and configuration of the building. We don't know any of that yet. We just know that there are models out there that have been very successful, and we'll try to learn from those models in Eastern Mass and some of the ones that are getting underway here in Western Mass. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank both of you for your presentation. And what I'm going to do is recognize committee members for a few minutes, and then I want to go back to public comments. So our public, you can leave your hand up. Doesn't matter. I remember that it was up before Tom. So we will get to you, but I wanted to hear councilor questions, and just in order that I think they went up. Lynn?
Yeah, I have two questions. So because we had already authorized ARPA funds, does that mean we do not need to do a public forum?
So we are not asking for an appropriation. This is a grant. So we don't hold public forums when we expend grant funds generally. So I
Okay.
would, yeah.
All right. And my second question is, when do we have to sign this purchase and sales by?
The purchase and sale is signed by the town manager, Lynn. So
Okay.
that's already been done. We are actually moving fairly rapidly. If the council on the 19th votes in favor of the acquisition, we hope to close by the middle of January.
Okay, I'm not sure we put it on the agenda.
It may be on the next agenda. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm
So if
mixing
it's
up
on the
agendas.
9th, it's still early enough?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I don't think it's on the agenda. I have to go search for the agenda, but
Yeah, we have
those are
some.
my two questions.
We have some flexibility, but we have a signed purchase and sale agreement. As I said, the leadership of the VFW has been remarkable, and Rob has been, shepherding that through, and they've been very supportive.
Yeah, I mean, on top of all of that, I just want to really thank all of you that have worked on this. This is a tremendous step forward for Amherst. Thank you.
Kathy.
I have a what's next question rather than the purchase question that Lynn just asked. And this is having just seen that we authorized CPA funds to buy land for the Belchertown Road complex, and they're back for $2.8 million for the Belcher. And we gave them land that we had. So do we have any thoughts about the next step? Would this be mainly town financed as the actual, Dave, you just said we don't know the size or anything else, but would we be counting on external support to build the permanent shelter? Or would we be coming back for more? And I'm asking this because in the past, we haven't asked that question very well about grants that we've received. Does it come with strings? So this is a purchase. And the second is, if we own it completely, is it usable for a variety of purposes until we got the money to make it bigger or different, knock it down, whatever we end up doing for the, so it's both before we get the next step of figuring out what the entity, the shelter will look like, the home rooms, is it usable? And my understanding is people have been using some of those rooms. So it's the two questions on the what, and both of them are around what's next.
Andy, is that all right if I
Go
jump
ahead.
in there? So why don't I answer the first question, and then I'll turn the second question over to Rob, if that's okay. Thank you, Kathy. So again, going back, I really want to emphasize that this is a very first step in a long process where we are going to have to work with partners. This is not Amherst alone. We are not, we have no intention, nor do we have, realistically, we are not going to fund a project of this size. This is something that we are going to have to bring in with a development partner, not unlike the East Street School Belchertown Road project. And we are going to partner with an entity like Wayfinders, like Valley CDC and others to come in, help us vision the project to meet the goals we've talked about for sheltering, other related services and permanent supportive housing, and ask them to go out and raise the funds, some millions of dollars to make this happen. There may well be an ask of CPA in the future, not unlike, again, the East Street School and the Belchertown Road project. Just to clarify, Kathy, you mentioned a number 2.8 million. Wayfinders actually asked for 1.8 million.
Okay, one point. I exactly.
And I think Sean and I have been working on that
Okay.
in parallel to the CPAC, and we think we've come up with a perhaps a more realistic number to support that. But yes, the answer is we would have to partner. There is no way this is going to be an Amherst lift. And I'll turn it over to Rob for questions about the usability of the current building.
Thank you for correcting me. I completely missed.
Yeah,
that.
no worries.
So the VFW had given up their licenses for the alcohol service and assembly space a couple of years ago. So the building hasn't been maintained or inspected for that purpose. This past last winter, we did authorize Craig's Doors to operate a small capacity warming center there that was appropriate in the large open ground level space that has the ramp leading to it. So there's parts of the building that are not appropriate for use. The fire department actually shut down the gas connection to the commercial kitchen, and that's been disconnected and made safe. So it would need some work to be used, and the building does not have a sprinkler or fire detection system. So the options are limited. So I just want, I don't want to suggest that the building could easily be used for something. It would be very limited if it was brought into a condition that was could pass inspection and gain occupancy for.
Okay, thank you. Oops, sorry.
Bob, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo Kathy's concerns about what's next and what the future what the future obligations of the town might be. And I understand it's too early, and I understand, Dave, your opinion is that it's not going to be an Amherst driven project, but given that we already have tremendous pressure on the budget that we just talked about for the first hour, I'm concerned. I mean, I think this is a great idea. Don't get me wrong. I fully support the idea, but I do think we have to be very cautious in terms of making it clear that where the funding is coming from as we move forward. And I think you've stated that, Dave, pretty well, but I just don't want us to forget, like 2 years from now. So, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Bernie?
Yeah, gentlemen, this solves a major problem when you're trying to start any program, which is citing it. I used to have a sign in my office that says somewhere else, which is the best place for any program. So you've just solved the somewhere else problem. So thank you. I'm happy to know that the town is not intending to construct or run the shelter, that's something that will be left to an appropriate not-for-profit organization. I'm fully supportive of that. I don't think the town should be in the shelter business. Being a landlord is one thing, being in the business, it's providing the services, a whole nother process. So, I think this is a good move. I'm presuming that there's going to be money left over in that $1 million allocation that will take care of the cost of raising the building. It's going to have to be taken down and recycled. I too will try to hold everyone to the promise that this is going to be operated by a third party and not by the town. So, but again, thank you.
If I could, Andy, Bob and Bernie, absolutely, agree with your comments, and Rob and I, at the direction of Paul, have clearly gone into it with those assumptions. We are well aware of, and Robin and my work touches so many projects throughout town. We are well aware of the 4 capital projects, and then all of the other projects, many of which we are involved with at different levels throughout town. We are very aware of the budgetary constraints. We are moving forward to try to acquire a site, and then the hard work really begins, frankly. It's taken us, a year and a half to identify different properties and find this site and hopefully close on it in January. But then we've got to roll up our sleeves and find those partners. And again, the goal is to really achieve one of the broad goals of that the council set for the town manager and for the community. But we recognize we are not shelter developers, we are not shelter operators, and that is crystal clear in all of our minds. So we're going forward with those assumptions. So thank you.
Lynn?
Please take Matt first.
Matt?
Oh, just a quick question. And Dave, thank you so much for the work on this. And, it's a really important issue. I guess I want to echo what I'm hearing, but I just wanted to ask, looking at just other municipalities around our size, I mean, how typical is it for us to be the landlord on something like this versus, partnering and having the management organization, own the property? I mean, as others have said, I mean, it is a little concerning to make a purchase now with such a long timeline ahead of us and not knowing sort of, how this is going to sit on the books.
Again, happy to have Rob chime in here, but although I don't want to presuppose where we go with this, but I think a typical way for a municipality to proceed would be not unlike the East Street School project. That is a piece of property that the town has owned for a long time as a school and had other uses. And we are in the process of entering a ground lease, a very long-term ground lease. So even though the town may remain the owner, for all intents and purposes, we are leasing that property to Wayfinders for a very, very long time. And I could see this project moving in that direction. I forwarded to the town manager, and it might be helpful to have that sent around. I could get it to Sean. There was an article in the Greenfield Recorder within a few days about their project. I believe they're proposing a $23 million. And again, I don't know the particulars of it. It was just in the Recorder. But the state is right now very supportive of these projects where it's a combination of sheltering and permanent supportive housing. So I think our timing is very good. There's state and federal funding for these projects. And again, I think if our window is right, we can try to move this forward during that open window with the state. But we would not be running the shelter. We would not be developing, owning a building of this size.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up, if you don't mind. So do you foresee us building the building?
No, absolutely not. We would not build this building. This
And
would
so
be.
do we have prospective, obviously we can't name names, but do we have prospective partners in mind who want to make who want to take out the loan and do this, build this?
It's, as I mentioned, I rattled through some of the nonprofit developers who do similar types of work. I've already had conversations with 2 of them. But again, it's still too early to really, we don't have a development partner at this point. That would all be worked out in, probably in the new year. And again, this is, Rob, jump in here anytime, but this is a 3 to 5 year horizon easily to move this forward.
And can I jump in real quick, Andy?
Yep.
And Matt, just again to the timing, ARPA sort of made this a possibility. Having the ARPA funds, we do have some restrictions on when they can be spent. Knowing that the town allocated $1 million for homelessness, and this being a goal of the council, it seems like the right time to get the land secured and then work out the details about how it'll be developed in the future.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I apologize, Dave. I know you talked about the development. So just to be clear, though, the developer would incur building costs. I mean, we are really looking at town costs ending at the purchase of the property.
By and large, yes. But as I said, in response to one of Kathy's questions earlier, I think it's realistic at some point that a developer might come back for CPA funds if the project were eligible for CPA funds. We'll also be looking, as you might have seen in our prospectus, in our PowerPoint, our hope is to work with our veterans agent, Steve Connor. There are various vouchers available to veterans, and that is a very consistent and predictable source of income. And our hope is for a developer. And our hope is through various vouchers, our hope is to set aside some of the units for eligible veterans. So that would all be on the developer, not on the town of Amherst.
So if it's okay with the committee, I would like to actually see if there's public comment that on this particular issue, because
Fine with me.
said we would do that.
Yeah, that's fine. I can wait.
So this is a request now for public comment. I know the person had their hand up before and took it down.
Hello.
Okay, you're in. Tom?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. So
Yes. Yeah, no, I'm reaching out. I work in property management and own and operate properties in this particular neighborhood. And I am excited, both good and bad, for what the potential is for this project. I know that there's a need for shelter in various capacities. I am wondering how the public will be engaged in the process of this development. If there's going to be a committee that works through this, if we would have the opportunity to have a voice or a seat at the table. And I do trust that there are some diligent organizations that will do a terrific job running this. But I'm wondering what type of participation can be applied for the owners of abutting properties in terms of protecting their vested interests.
thank you for your comment, and appreciate it. We don't have a guarantee of responding to public comment, to take it under advisement. But if David or Rob or Lynn want to respond to that, they're certainly welcome to do so.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to quickly respond. No, Tom, thank you for your question. I think it's an excellent one, and I guess I would say we will take it under advisement. We absolutely want to have as much public participation in this project. It's going to be a very high profile project for the town. I did engage with the town manager briefly by email today around kind of next steps. We have not determined those yet, honestly. We're simply working on getting through the process of acquisition, and then we can take a little bit of a deep breath and say, what's next? But we hear you, Tom. We know there will be interest. There will be some concern. There will be lots of questions. What is this going to be? What's it going to look like? Everything from any development, traffic, hours of operation, potential impacts near and far. How big is it going to be? We don't even know that. We don't know how many people it will serve. Will it be a shelter for 10 people, or will it be a shelter for 25 people? None of that has been determined yet. We have not looked at any of that, but we will, and we will take your question internally here, and Rob and I will talk with the town manager, and there may well be a committee. I can't commit to that. I'd like to get some feedback from Rob and Paul on that. So we will let the community know.
Good, thank you. I'm going to exercise prerogative of the chair and ask one question of Rob. Is my understanding from what you said before that there is no zoning change that would be required to use this land for the envisioned purpose? Is that correct?
That's correct. Both the residential portion of this type of facility and the congregate shelter itself are both uses that are permitted in the district by site plan review, which is a by right use authorized by the planning board.
So there would be no hearing attached to any zoning change because there would be none.
Correct.
Lynn?
Now, let me begin with response to Tom Crossman and say that in a similar situation of 132 Northampton Road, both the town and the developer had a serious engagement with the surrounding community. And as a result, some additional features of that property were added that have really helped the neighbors to feel much more comfortable about that facility. So I just want to say that while we don't do building committees for buildings we're not going to build, but there has been some serious engagement process that have led to very honored input from neighbors. So we hope that will happen here. I had two other comments. One is, this is two housekeeping items. One is Alicia left at 4:04 and Michelle Miller had to leave at 4:49. And once we get done with other counselor comments, the earliest this can go on the agenda is the 9th of January. We did not post it for the meeting on the 19th of December. But I would suggest that we go ahead and vote recommended to the council tonight.
Okay. Kathy?
I second that motion, if that was a motion, and I just want to state even more strongly, if is Matt still here, Dave's caveat about town money, when CPA is town money. And this year, the number of requests far exceeded what we have, and we can go into debt for it. But a competing part of it is our community fields, not just, community fields, recreation areas, name it. So when we take on these projects, as yet, Dave, not a single housing project has come to us that didn't need CPA money. I'm not saying I can never imagine one in my time, but they also take community block grant money, so that's become part of the package that brings in the state dollars, the other people's money dollars. So I think we need to be careful to say that it may not be on the town budget, but one of the ways our town budget is functioning well is we're using opportunities to fund things under CPA, which might otherwise be funded under the town budget. So the athletic fields are a recent example of that. But I mean, so not to discount that we're in think of the whole budget in the future for this. So I just wanted to make it clear that Dave spoke very carefully when he said, work with these partners. He didn't say the partners will come up with all the money needed for this. So that was all. It was just a comment because this year it's a pretty big set of requests. So these things, and it's all things we want. So not a thing, almost nothing's on the list that we wouldn't want to have. So.
And if I can just clarify, Kathy, thank you for saying that. I misspoke. What I meant was town debt. I didn't really mean grants and other available fund sources. I meant debt.
Yeah.
Hey, David Lindland, I want to close this because I think we need to move towards adjournment.
So I think,
but I think we now have I just want to clarify with Lynn and Kathy. We have a motion on the floor, and the motion is that we recommend, I think that the appropriate thing to do is to recommend the order.
Yeah, let me make a more formal motion. I move that we recommend that the town council approve an order authorizing the acquisition of property for sheltering, affordable housing, supportive/transitional housing, and/or supportive service purposes.
And I second, and we're looking at that motion is in our packet, so it has the dollar amount, and the verbiage behind it is this is ARPA money. So it goes as a package. Yes,
I can show it on the screen if you want me to, Andy.
No, I'm seconding that motion.
Now you've got me confused because We have an order that was drafted and submitted to the council too.
I think that's in our finance package for tonight.
Yes.
It's the same order, isn't it? So Lynn's just recommending that order.
Yeah, she's recommending that order, Andy. That's what I understood.
So should the motion be, I can't get to it, there was a number to the order.
There's no number in this one. Sean, do you have a number?
So it's not an appropriation order. So I don't have one. I don't know if Athena's still on, but because it's not an appropriation order, it doesn't come through Sonia and through the accounting office.
Athena's raised her hand.
Okay, Athena.
Athena?
I got to allow her to talk. Hold on. There she goes. You're in, Athena.
Thanks. Sorry, I had to join a different way so I can be in 2 meetings at once. Sean's right. We use the order numbers for financial orders, and this doesn't have a financial component at the moment. So it would be a certified vote of the council rather than a financial order number. So I would actually take that out when the council approves it.
Do we not need to say this, and the money is coming from ARPA? There's no dollar number in here and there's no source number. I mean, it's a blanket, go ahead and buy it.
It's an authorization for the town manager to purchase. This is, and I don't believe that, Sean can probably answer this better than I can about use of ARPA funds, but we haven't made appropriations for ARPA funds. Is that right, Sean?
Right. Again, it's not an appropriation, so you don't have to specify the amount because it's within the town manager's purview to spend it. Obviously, he's going to try to get the spend efficiently and wisely, which is why we've given you the backup, but it doesn't have to be in this order.
But do we not have any language that says we think the price is $750 and it's coming from ARPA? I mean, this is as written, this is go out and buy it is the way
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what the council is doing is giving the town manager approval to go out and buy it based on the price for the backup that he's provided.
Yeah, I think that's okay, Kathy, when you think about it, because he can't use any non-grant funds for the purpose without coming back to the council for authorization, so that this authorizes him to buy, but doesn't give him any money that he doesn't already control, which is only grant money.
right. But we've been told an amount, and ARPA, there's money in ARPA going for other things too.
There's a purchase and sale agreement signed, Dave, right? That has a number in it.
Right. So can't we, I'm just looking for, based on the purchase and sale, something, Sean, that, anchors it into, we're looking at a purchase and sale agreement. It's not
Okay, why don't I do this? Amend the motion to say that we recommend that the town council approve this order, blah, 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 based on the the provision of the purchase and sale agreement or something like that. If somebody else amended, but mention the purchase and sale agreement, and we can even attach it.
That would make me feel a whole lot better. Thank you.
And Kathy, I can't see anybody but Dave and I can check with our legal counsel too. We worked with legal counsel to draft this.
I think if I could, that question was asked of Sharon Everett, and really because it's ARPA funds, it is not needed in the order. It is not an order. It is an order to purchase. And I think Lynn's, and that is needed legally for a municipality to purchase land. But because it's coming from ARPA funds, it does not have to have the purchase amount. But I think Lynn's amendment to the motion contingent upon a purchase and sale agreement, and we can get Sean the details of that and Athena, and that can be packaged as part of the motion. Even in your motion, you could say, as per the purchase and sale agreement dated on such and such a date for the purchase price of $775. period.
Right, and we.
That's
when
all I
we-
was asking for, not to, Sean, I wasn't suggesting rewrite the order. I was
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
that the motion we're passing be anchored in that purchase and sale. Perfect.
And
And if
well,
the price ever did change, we would bring it back to you. I mean, we wouldn't tell you it's going to be one number and then buy it for a different number. So just as a general rule, we would.
we can make sure all of that is written for the motions on the 9th of January. But Athena, you have your hand up again.
Thanks. I just wanted to clarify. I'm sorry, Andy.
I was just saying, please take the screen share down so that we,
I did.
because I'm,
I took it down, Andy. I don't know
I
I
why.
don't know what I'm, okay.
Art is down for me. Yep.
So for the motion now, I have to recommend the council approve the order with the order title in accordance with the purchase and sale agreement and price signed by the town manager. Dave, is it correct that Paul signed the PNS? Okay, so I can say signed by the town manager. Is that acceptable to the Lynn and Kathy?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, so we have a motion that's been made and seconded. I don't think we, unless there's a request for further discussion, we'll go ahead and I'll ask the resident members first whether they support, and then I'm going to ask the 3 members of the council of president note the absences. So Bob?
I support.
Matt?
Support, thank you.
Bernie?
Support.
Michelle is absent at this point. Kathy?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Alicia is an absent at this point. And Lynn?
Aye.
So it's 3 in favor, none opposed, 2 members absent, and 3 resident members in support. So I think that the only thing that I want to touch on, because I'm not going to do minutes today, is the next committee meeting. And Lynn, I think, is going to quickly put that agenda up just in case there are any questions about it. And which I think means that Dave will be back with us on Tuesday. If you can't find it, then let me share. See if I can.
Andy, are you all set with Rob and myself?
Thank you.
Were you able to find it, Lynn?
I think I'm coming back to talk about the park grant for
that's
Hickory
what I was
Ridge
gonna
next
point
Tuesday.
out. Let me just, I'm just going to read the topics that are on the agendas so people know, and then we can go ahead and see if there's any unanticipated business and close. So I think now I'm trying to make sure I also have the correct and I just realized I pulled up the wrong one myself.
It's up on the screen, Andy.
Okay, so so what we have on the agenda for Tuesday includes we don't need the guidelines anymore, so that will be eliminated from discussion. It's been posted, but we're done with that. I don't know that we have reserved the opportunity to come back, talk about transfer fees. I think that we're now done with 457 Main Street. Remember what happened with this was that it was posted, it had to be posted before the start of today's meeting because of the 2-day rule. And so we just threw everything in to the posting, but not with the intention that we would actually have to talk about it. So item 3 is done. And we probably don't need to talk about 4 any further. The major things are water and sewer regulation needs to come back because there's one modification that might be important for us to know about. And I'll come back to that in a second in Hickory Ridge. And then we hopefully finish up the minutes problem. So those would be the major purposes. We're trying to keep to be a very limited meeting because it is a holiday week also, and we don't want it to be long. The reason that the sewer regulation would be back on the table, and Sean will explain this next week and we'll know more information, is that they've been talking with insurance companies that might provide insurance to the town to limit the town's liability on taking on this additional cost. And we should have quotes before we meet on Tuesday and be able to recalculate. And it could reduce the rates that are in the that we talked about at the last meeting. So it's additional information, but important for the committee to have. So that's the reason that that's back on the agenda. The only other thing that I want to quickly mention is that Kathy and I have been working on a report for the Finance Committee to give to the council for the meeting next week. And we're hoping to have that draft done by tomorrow, hopefully noon. And if we can, we will send it to the committee. But there's very little turnaround time because it is Friday, it needs to be posted so that if we don't have any comments by the end of the day on Friday tomorrow, we're going to have to close it and submit the report. So I just wanted to let you know that. And with that said, is there any other requests for things were not anticipated that need to be asked? Seeing none, thank you. This has been a full meeting, but a very productive meeting. So
Thank you all.
Everybody.
Thanks, everybody.